Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakahakodash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well, and peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Zephaniah chapter 1, verses 2 to 3. I will utterly consume all things from off the land, saith Yahweh. I will consume man and beast. I will consume the fowls of heaven, and the fishes of the sea, and the stumbling blocks with the wicked, and I will cut off man from off the land, saith Yahweh. And this was the Most High speaking to the tribe of Judah in the past, telling them some of the judgments that would come their way for the wickedness they were committing in the Holy Land, going away from their power, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, and not following the laws, statutes, and commandments, and following after the ways of the heathen nations. But as it says in Romans chapter 15, everything written aforetime was written for our learning. Hey, you've got Judah as well as the other tribes of Israel committing wickedness like their forefathers did in the past. So this same judgment is about to come their way. But since we're living in the last seconds of these last days, this judgment is going to befall the entire earth. Not just Israel, but these heathen nations as well. Chiefly the Edomites, or the so-called white people. And we're seeing these very same things that happened in the past taking place as we speak. This is an article from the economiccollapseblog.com titled, "Why are large numbers of birds suddenly dropping dead in multiple U.S. states?" Back in Zephaniah chapter 1 verse 3, I will consume man and beast. I will consume the fowls of heaven, the birds. And it's interesting that it's happening in the United States of America, because when everything's said and done, the United States of America is going to receive the worst judgment during Jacob's trouble of all these heathen nations. It's going to be hit by 200 million nuclear missiles and turned into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards. And the only people that are going to make it out of that destruction are the elect of the nation of Israel, the 144,000 and the rest of the righteous 1/3 of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, as well as the Israelite foreigners who look like the heathen nations. As for 2/3 of the nation of Israel who continue to be hard-headed like their forefathers and follow after the ways of these heathen nations, and you heathen nations in the United States of America, you're going to get burned up in that nuclear fire. And these different signs, such as the fowls of heaven being taken away, is just showing you that Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is bringing judgment on this wicked kingdom. As if we didn't have enough weird things going on, now birds are suddenly dropping dead in large numbers all across the eastern half of the country. Before they die, a lot of these birds are exhibiting very strange symptoms. Experts are telling us that in many cases, birds are developing crusty or puffy eyes, and often they appear to go completely blind. In addition, quite a few of these dying birds lose their ability to stay balanced, and we are being told that some even seem to be having seizures. If scientists understood what was causing this to happen, that would be one thing, but at this point, they have no idea why this is taking place, and that is quite alarming. Again, Zephaniah chapter 1 verse 3, I will consume man and beast. I will consume the fowls of heaven and the fishes of the sea and the stumbling blocks with the wicked, and I will cut off man from off the land, saith Yahweh. It's ultimately the judgments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai coming upon this planet, chiefly Babylon the Great, for all the wickedness it's been committing. So far, confirmed incidents of this strange phenomena have been documented in Washington, D.C., Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana. Could it be possible that we are dealing with a mystery disease that started in one state and that has now spread to other surrounding states? Or is something else going on here? Prophecies going on. We are being told that blue jays, common grackles, and European starlings are the most common birds that are being affected. But whatever is happening is not just limited to one species of birds, and I think that should be a red flag. If our best experts even had a decent working theory about why so many birds are dying, I probably would not have written this article. But at this point, they are openly admitting that they have absolutely no idea why so many birds are suddenly dropping dead. We're experiencing an unusual amount of bird mortality this year, said Kate Slankard, an avian biologist with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources. We have yet to figure out what the problem is. The condition seems to be pretty deadly. In Kentucky, the bird deaths seem to have begun in late May. The following comes directly from the official website of the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources. In late May, the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources began receiving reports of sick and dying birds with eye swellings and crusty discharge, as well as neurological signs. Wildlife agencies in Indiana, Maryland, Ohio, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and West Virginia have reported similar problems. State wildlife agencies are working with diagnostic laboratories to investigate the cause of mortality. Kentucky Fish and Wildlife has sent more than 20 samples for lab testing to the Southeastern Cooperative Wildlife Disease Study at the University of Georgia. More results are pending, but no definitive cause of death has been identified at this time. After testing 20 samples, they still have no idea what is going on. According to Slankard, hundreds of birds in her state have now become victims. They'll just sit still, often kind of shaking, Slankard said. It's pretty safe to say that hundreds of birds in the state have had this problem. But of course, the truth is that we have no way of knowing how many birds have actually been affected. It could be thousands of birds in the state. It could be hundreds of thousands. We just don't know, and Kentucky is just one of the states that has been hit. In Indiana, authorities tested for avian flu and West Nile virus, but those tests came back negative. Indiana wildlife officials said there have been suspicious deaths of blue jays, robins, northern cardinals, and brown-headed cowbirds in 5 counties. James Brindle, spokesman for the state's Department of Natural Resources, said birds there have tested negative for avian influenza and West Nile virus. One theory that is floating around is that these birds are ingesting large amounts of pesticides because of all the cicadas that they are eating. Some experts are flatly dismissing that theory because the disease has also appeared in states where cicadas are not present, though this is probably playing into some of these birds dying, because right now with these Edomites, the so-called white people ruling the planet is languishing under their rulership. This is Isaiah chapter 24. I'm going to start at verse 4. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. The world languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. And when we go to the Strong's definition for the word languisheth, it's H535.
Strong's H535. Amal. Gesenius Lexicon.
To be weak, to droop, to languish, to be exhausted, to be weak, to be or grow feeble. And why is that? As it says in verse 5, the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, and the current nation in rulership on this planet right now are the Edomites, the border of wickedness in Malachi chapter 1 verse 4, and the wicked whom the world has been given into the hands of in Job 9 verse 24, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, and broken the everlasting covenants. And these Edomites do everything clean contrary to the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. They spray chemtrails into the sky, which is damn sure had an effect on a lot of these birds out here. They spray chemical pesticides on these plants, which works in a vicious cycle. You have certain bugs that eat off of those plants, and then certain birds that eat those bugs, which they can ingest those pesticides, which could very well be another reason why some of those birds that we're reading about dropping dead in that article are dying off. And then a while ago, you had incidents of people recording birds dropping dead and falling onto the ground that were around 1, 2, 3, 4 5G towers. And then this devil pours pollution into the oceans and other trash, which causes marine life to beach itself on these shores because they can't handle it. They strip mine the lands for their resources. They hunt animals damn near to extinction. They have a cell and Wi-Fi radiation, which gives people cancer. They give people GMO foods, which further gives people cancer. And they push destructive ideologies onto the people, such as the alphabet agenda beginning with LG, capitalism, feminism, socialism, democracy, communism, you name it. You Edomites have built up a major tab of wickedness that your red ass won't be able to pay off. And also, since these Edomites are in rulership, as it says in Sirach chapter 10, as the king is, so are the people. You've got all these other heathen nations following suit and following their destructive practices and further causing the earth to languish. So it's going to be very beautiful when you Edomites are finally taken out of power and the rightful rulers are put back into power. The children of Israel, again, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who are going to rule in the kingdom of heaven for eternity under the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, which is going to bring this planet back to its former estate, a paradise like the Garden of Eden, and if you can believe it, even better than the Garden of Eden. But whether Esau is directly or indirectly causing these birds to die off, ultimately, again, it's through the will of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, bringing about these judgments for all the wickedness you people have been committing. And he's using Esau to do it, if that's the case. As it says in Psalms chapter 17, verse 13, Esau, or the wicked, is the sword of the Most High. But how can they be so sure that it is a disease if they have absolutely no idea why this is happening? I don't think that we should jump to any conclusions that are not backed up by science. Obviously, a lot more testing needs to be done. If it does turn out to be a disease that is causing this, is it a disease that can also spread to humans? Moving forward, that could be one of the most important questions that needs to be answered. Hopefully we can get some solid answers, because this is not the first time something like this has happened. Back in September, one expert said that it appeared that hundreds of thousands of birds were dropping dead in New Mexico. Wildlife experts in New Mexico say birds in the region are dropping dead in alarming numbers, potentially in the hundreds of thousands. It appears to be an unprecedented and a very large number. Martha Desmond, a professor at New Mexico State University's Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Conservation Ecology, told NBC's Albuquerque affiliate, KOB. But whatever was causing those deaths to happen in New Mexico seems to have stopped. Is there any connection between that event and the deaths that are happening in the eastern half of the country now? I wish that I had the answer to that question. We live at a time when pesticides, high technology, and other forms of human activity are having a greater impact on birds and animals than ever before. Back in Isaiah 24 verse 5, the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof. We live at a time when pesticides, high technology, and other forms of human activity are having a greater impact on birds and animals than ever before, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, and broken the everlasting covenant. And since the Edomites are the heathen nation that's in rulership of the planet right now, they're the main culprits behind these destructive acts that are causing the earth to be defiled and languish. And like I said earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if the Edomites have some hand in these birds dropping off dead. But we have also entered an era when I believe that great pestilences are going to become very common. And like I also said earlier, it's ultimately the will of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai bringing about these judgments. And if Esau has a hand in it, he's being used by the Most High, since he's the Most High's sword. Obviously, something is killing all those birds, and hopefully, scientists will have something solid to tell us very soon. With each passing day, our world is getting crazier, and so much is going wrong all around us, because we're living in the last seconds of these last days, when these heathen nations, chiefly these Edomites, are going to be taken out of power, and the kingdom of heaven, ruled under the Israelites, is going to be established for eternity. And there's going to be a lot of death, destruction, and misery in between it all. But that's it with this article. This is Hosea chapter 4, verse 3. Therefore shall the land mourn, and everyone that dwelleth therein shall languish, with the beasts of the field, with the fowls of heaven, which we just read about. Yeah, the fishes of the sea also shall be taken away. And the fishes being taken away was also mentioned back in Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 3. I will consume man and beast. I will consume the fowls of heaven and the fishes of the sea. And whenever the Most High mentions something more than once in the scriptures, you know it's very significant. Here's a YouTube clip from Rupley's YouTube channel titled Lebanon. Tons of dead fish float in Lake Quaran in Litani River. Therefore shall the land mourn, and everyone that dwelleth therein shall languish, with the beasts of the field, with the fowls of heaven. Yeah, the fishes of the sea also shall be taken away. More end time signs and judgments from Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Up to 80 tons of dead fish have been washed up on the banks of Lake Quaran on the Litani River, as seen in Bakah Valley on Friday. Rotting fish and rubbish were seen floating next to the shores. While the exact cause of the fish deaths is yet unknown, a virus and unprecedented pollution have been reported as the most likely explanations, the earth being defiled under the inhabitants thereof. And while this is going on over in Lebanon with those Ishmaelites, or so-called Arabs, like I said earlier, as it says in Sirach chapter 10, as the king is, so are the people. With these Edomites being the ones in rulership, these other heathen nations are following after their destructive ways and practices. We were waiting all day for a fish expert who dissected the fish on the lake and discovered that these fish suffer from some kind of internal wear and tear in their guts and bleeding. They have internal bleeding, said Nasrallah Hajj, head of Quran Dam Department, the national authority for the Litani River. He warned local residents not to eat the fish and cautioned that if the local waters spoil, a great loss will be incurred. Initial reports said some 40 tons of fish had been washed up, but Hajj suggested that around 70 to 80 tons had now accrued. And this was published back on May 1st. Yeah, and the fishes of the sea shall be taken away. Dead fish, pollution, you name it. This earth is definitely in need of new management, in need of the Israelites being in power, running this planet under the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. You won't see any of this going on in the kingdom of heaven. With that clip. But hey, as you sincere Akim can see, with each passing day, we're getting closer and closer to our salvation and the end of these heathen nations, chiefly these Edomites ruling, with all these different end-time signs taking place before our very eyes. So like we always tell you, you should have all 10 toes down in this truth, pushing this word as hard as you possibly can to make your calling and election sure and be saved from the rest of the calamities to come of Jacob's trouble, and to get beamed up on that chariot for salvation. So with this video, I hope you sincere Akim were edified. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.